We have known Charles for a very, very long time, and we're excited to have him today, sharing about 30 years of experience in the field that has changed tremendously over those decades. Throughout this time, his love of ephemera and unique artwork has held strong, and he has found a unique and successful way to bridge that love with his day-to-day job at CSA Design. So here to share that story with you, Charles.
Hey, how's it going? Can everybody hear me? I was supposed to make a really slick entrance from the side, but the door was locked, so I had to climb up. Sorry about that. Anyway, see if we can get this thing going. All right. Is this early or is it just me? At least it's dark in here. I don't even know designers that get up this early. I feel for the people from the West Coast. Even I wouldn't get up this early to come hear myself speak, so sorry guys, but I prefer evening presentations, and done quite a few of those, especially the ones with open bar and free booze. Seems like the more people drink, the better our work gets, the smarter I become, and the funnier the stuff is, so kind of a fan of that. All right. I think I'm going to jump right in here and do this condensed version of logos we've done over the last 30 years. See if this will work. So, I'm supposed to talk about 30 years of logo design and brand identity in 45 minutes, which is going to be challenging. So, Armin made it really clear about keeping it to 45 minutes and not going over even by 1 second, or he would pull the plug, he said. So, that's the threat that lies over the top of this thing. Armin also said I wasn't supposed to read my notes, so I thought I'd like this. We're kind of the masters of bad puns, but anyway. So for the sake of time, I decided that to just include logos we've designed over the years for some of our best and bravest clients, with a couple of clinkers thrown in just for accent. This narrows down the field quite a bit, actually. Just trying to figure out how to make these presenter notes actually show. I think Armin rigged this thing so I couldn't read the presenter notes. They won't scroll. All right, we'll see what we got here. Back at the beginning, I was born in Minneapolis. When I was 8 years old, we moved to this small town in Iowa, in the middle of nowhere. Nothing but farm fields and nothing to do around. No art, design, culture of any kind. Just horrible, grueling farm work. This is the house we moved into. Of course, we photoshopped it to make it look a lot happier than it was. Obviously added the sun and the colors. In reality, it was gray and faced the town graveyard right across the street. Yeah, more like that. In this small town where I grew up, the only art really available was 1970s comic books and creepy, weird monster magazines, which fueled my love of drawing and vernacular art. And I like to think back about this time a lot. I still love this stuff, and we still struggle between, lowbrow art and illustration and then high design. I think most people that perceive design didn't have 4 years of college to teach them the beauty and amazement of sans serif type. Most people relate to images and actually probably prefer things like monster fans there. But so yeah, later when I returned to Minneapolis to attend the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, all of my lowbrow comic influences really clashed head-on, like a bad collision with the college's Swiss modern design program at the time. And we started with 240 students and graduated 24. Every semester they would cut the class by portfolio review, including halfway through 4th year. They cut the class in half, and those people weren't allowed to graduate. So it was a really hellish program. And I think they were trying to increase the level of people getting out of there, but really it just was kind of maybe a little too severe and detrimental. This was the guy in charge of making all the cuts. His name was Peter Seitz, and he was a massive design heavyweight. He studied at the new Bauhaus in Ulm, Germany under Otto Aker and Max Bill, and then went on at Yale with Bradbury Thompson and Paul Rand. His first job was with I.M. Pei, the famed architect, and he was the first design curator ever hired at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, which is why he came to town. I was fortunate enough to have him for my 3rd year design instructor, and then he hired me when I graduated, which I was always amazed by, because he'd walk by and I'd be working on some logo design, and he'd stop and say, in his best German accent, "This is not design. These are silly little drawings you are doing." Anyway, it's been a lot of silly drawings in my career, I guess, but anyway. So yeah, he was a huge influence and kind of became my mentor and followed after a lot of his ideas. And worked there for a couple of years, and then joined a group called the Duffy Design Group. They were affiliate of Fallon Advertising, the top agency in the country at the time. And but jumping back to Peter, he had some really strong ideas about logo and about identity design. He thought a logo has like 7 principles of great logo design. Conceptual, logo should be simple, timeless, memorable, distinct, appropriate, reducible, and a logo should also work in black and white. You're going to see a lot of black and white in these slides, including the title slides that are kind of never-ending. So people can tweet them, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, so if you can design a logo that fits all these 7 Seitz requirements, it's likely pretty good and should stand the test of time. So in 1989, I formed CSA Design. This is part of our website. And we specialize in creating brand identities along with analog, digital, and interactive products and packaging. And along with our client projects, we've also built this extensive image resource. Created over many decades, the CSA Images collection is inspired by the entire history of modern art, design, illustration, and print. Kind of have this idea of keeping print design alive, even in digital form, online. So we believe that great design is about making something that adds richness to people's lives. And we consider what we do as art for commerce. In fact, commercial art is what they used to call it before they changed it to graphic design. That's a probably better description for what we do. We also believe that form and function are linked. One doesn't follow the other. How something looks is crucial and pretty much inseparable from how it works. Although this doesn't mean everything that should look like a flat shape of glass in a rectangle with round edges like an iPhone. We think things can be a lot more interesting than that, and we think the addition of art is really an important component. So our process starts never with a blank page. We never just start with nothing. Our process starts years and decades ago with a lifelong love of design the ideas, the aesthetics, logos, type illustration, elements, icons, the entire history of design. We're just giant fans and have such a love for the whole thing. And our approach really involves building on the shoulders of design giants who've gone before by collecting and preserving these artifacts in the history of design. So I guess in our perspective, we think that, as Winston Churchill once said, this is our historic building and warehouse in Minneapolis. It contains millions of printed design artifacts and original art created and compiled over the last 40 years. And we share the building with my wife's studio, Lori DiMartino Design. She's on the top floor. This is me in my office. One of our many Boston Terrier mascots. I'm kind of like the creative director and chief junk curator. That's pretty much my main title. This is my office desk clutter, which I view as inspiration. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of my never-ending collection of stuff. Another one of these little guys climbing on top of the piles. If anybody has a Boston Terrier, they're really odd little creatures. They're more like alien pod monkeys than they are dogs. Next are some of the designers whose work you'll see throughout this presentation. This is Peter Wortman and Kayla Campbell. Eric Johnson, Giovanni Hollingsworth, Sheraton Green, some of the most talented designers I've ever been fortunate enough to work with. So we've created a lot of logos over the decades for Warner Brothers, Paramount Pictures, French Paper, Nike, Turner Classic Movies, Custom Ink, and hundreds more. My favorite logos are the ones designed for people we like, who run companies we care about and make products that we love. So these are a few. I don't talk about process a lot because I don't think it's very interesting. It just involves like a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of renditions, and a lot of talent, I guess. So every one of these marks has hundreds of marks behind them that it took to get to that step, the final. And actually, the more difficult part than actually designing the logo is getting consensus from the client. That's the true art form. That's the real design challenge. So coming up with 3 words that best describe a company, that's kind of always our goal. Distill it down to its essence to 3 words. And before we do that, we try to get a committee of just maybe 3 or 4 people on the approval end. The more people on the approval side from the client, the less likely the logo will live, and the more likely it'll be, the more people, the more likely it'll get destroyed or nibbled to death by ducks, as they call it, which is a fate worse than death. So, you know, chief executive officer, chief marketing officer, chief creative officer, that'd be great, just those 3. Sometimes the CEO all by himself is the real ideal way to go. But trying to get that down, the approval group is the first main challenge. The second main challenge is getting at the essence of the company into 3 words. And those 3 words become the base of the strategy, and the rationale behind those words is what we use to start designing. Then we usually come up with like hundreds of different variations based on those words. And everybody works on the projects. We continually lay the stuff out on the floor and look at it. We always talk to the client during the process, because if they don't know what's going on and you just show them something, obviously they'll kill it every time pretty much. So we never show them anything visually, we just talk to them a lot about the process and what we're trying. And we describe things with words so they know kind of where it's going. After the first round, we take the 5 best directions that seem most promising. It doesn't matter who designed them. We take those 5 directions, and then everybody works on them and does variations on those directions. Then from the variations, we pick the 5 final marks, do just a few applications to show how it would be applied so it doesn't take a lot of imagination. And then we go to the presentation. And at the presentation, we might bring the 100 marks that are the backup and show them the pile when we talk about the process. But we don't show them the marks, we just show them how many there are. And then we start the process kind of in reverse. We go over the 3 keywords again, and we show the 4 logos first that aren't the final. And of the 4 logos, we talk about the problems each one has, what's right about them, what's wrong about them, how they fulfill the 3 words. And we kind of do that and build a case and reject each one as we go forward. And by the time we get to the last logo, it should be kind of the inevitable solution that this is the right one. That's how it's supposed to work. But these are one of those meetings you really can't control, and anything could happen. And when you've been doing it as long as I have, you've seen a lot of things. Like everybody agreeing, and suddenly a CEO saying, I don't like it, I don't like any of them. And all of a sudden everybody's not agreeing, and they're agreeing with the CEO. That's a really hard thing to recover from. Sometimes it just kills the project dead. But with enough questions and dragging information out, you can kind of find out whether it's the typeface they have a problem with, the color palette, kind of what exactly it is. And in the worst case scenario, they'll grab the stack of 100 marks and start going through them all, spreading them all over the table. And that's kind of the biggest nightmare, because what usually happens is they'll pick the 2 worst ones and want you to combine them both. So the meeting crumbles into this giant chaotic mess. And then to salvage it, we snap from presentation mode into a work-in-progress meeting where everything becomes like open up. And we get enough comments on all the logos, and this is really helpful actually, because it's not just words. Now they're reacting to pictures. And that leap, of course, between words and pictures is gigantic. And when they react to these pictures, they start talking about what they like visually and what they don't, what might work, how it fits the objectives. And then we actually have something that we can go back, revisit the design phase again, for more money, of course, and then come back with something that we have a better chance of succeeding with. So that's on the positive. In terms of companies that we love, with the true story and history, one of my longest and best clients for nearly 30 years are my friends at the French Paper Company. And this was my first impression of the mill when I went to visit them in the mid-1980s. We didn't design this. This was their little paper trademark character when we pulled up. This is a sign in front. It's a little man made out of paper. His mouth is neon. He either smiles or frowns depending on the safety record. Like, back in the day, there used to be a lot of one-arm paper makers, you know, because they'd walk too close to the machine and would tear their arm off, and, you know. But they'd just keep making the paper because that's the way these guys are, you know. Anyway, but that was a long time ago. There's a lot more safety now. 77 days, probably a guy just stubbed his toe or something. Probably wasn't a big deal. Anyway, this sign just made a huge impression on me because it was real. A sign painter had done it. Loved the hand-painted type and the whole thing, and it just kind of captured French's entire history. And a lot of the vernacular approach that we started with French was based on this. I always try to build identity from the truth or something real. So French is based in the small town of Niles, Michigan. They were the first company to ever incorporate in the state of Michigan. They were founded in 1871. And they're one of the last family-owned 6th-generation independent paper mills left in America, and also one of America's top paper brands. I started working with French when I was 27 years old, and a whole lot later. This is me and former President Bruce Bigford standing in front of the paper machine. And, you know, I started working with French in probably the best way to start working with a client. Started by loving their products. Looking for a newsprint or a craft paper. This was back in the time when everything was slick and chrome coat was king and everything was gloss-coated papers. And I was looking for something like different. The closest thing I could find was a line called Speckletone. Only had like 2 colors, white and craft, I think it was. And I started designing things on these papers. And I'd send them samples every time I'd get one back from a printer. Never heard back from French. And one day, Jerry French just walked through the door at our offices, and he was holding all these samples I'd sent. And he said, we really like what you're doing on our paper. And I said, well, we really like your paper. So we talked about maybe doing a joint promotional piece. Since we'd already done the work on the paper, we'd do a brochure that would be our work on their paper. This is when I was still at Duffy Group. And they agreed. So we took their entire annual advertising budget, and then some, and put it into printing 5,000 of these little brochures. And they got shipped out, and within 6 months' time, their worst-selling number 12 line, Speckletown, became their number 1 selling line. And they became believers in the power of graphic design. And I remember getting a call from Jerry French, and he said, "You've got a paper mill at your disposal," which is a lot of fun, but a lot of responsibility, too. And so, yeah, French is a great American manufacturing story and proof that design and innovation can help even small companies compete. So we designed French's identity, promotions, advertising, website, and work with them to develop new papers. They have over 100 colors currently. This is kind of why French is unique, because of the 6 generations of family. And we created these graphic illustrations as part of French's brand. I like JW's mustache back in the beginning. But these are the generations, and this is kind of what other paper mills don't really have. So we print this on all the cartons, and this has kind of become part of their brand. Number 5 is Jerry French. This is one of my favorite slides of French that I took when I was there last time. This is the French family plot, just a few miles from the mill. And I love this because it shows that French didn't acquire their 145-year history by buying an existing old brand or making up a phony story. They built their history the hard way, with generations of family working at the mill their entire lives. And I remember asking Jerry one time if he ever planned to retire. And his answer was, he'll retire the same way the 3 generations before him retired, feet first. Which I thought was funny at the time, but last month Jerry's dad, Ed French, passed away, which is very sad, and joining the rest of the family here. He was 92 years old, which was great, and he came to work every single day, practically up to the day he died, which I think is incredible. It's kind of the companies that built this country, you know? So we've helped French paper increase their sales by over 500% since we began working with them. And this brochure features a timeline of French paper's history and shows the brand equity that French has gained over nearly a century and a half, kind of for perspective. French was around before airplanes were invented, and 120 years before the internet, I think 15 years before the Coca-Cola logo, which is, I think, pretty interesting. This is the French paper maker of the future, with the new logo embedded into his forehead, as it should be. These are some of the French paper logos we've used over the years. And since designers are the audience, we try to keep it interesting by changing the identity constantly and keep them from getting bored and keep ourselves from getting bored too. So some of these were used on one promotion, some of these were used for a year or so. And again, this is just a fraction of all the marks we've done. This is French's giant shipping carton for 26 by 40-inch full sheets of paper. These were made with all the logos and designs that we've done for French over the years. Kind of doubles as a poster. I've seen these at print shops and hanging on the walls of design studios and silk screeners. Also designed to stand out on the press room floor in multiples. These are the French business cards, multiple colors die cut to resemble a tag. So beyond just building a brand, French has built really a reputation over the last 45 years by meeting face-to-face with clients and personally handing them these paper business cards along with paper promotions and samples, which seems a little bit more solid to me than likes. These are some new linear versions of the French paper icons. And a poster we did for French that features travel tags of all 50 states using many of the icons we designed for French. So we love French paper so much, and we think that Jerry French should run for president, especially this year. Just bump Trump right out of there and move Jerry right in. We even have the poster for it. And French is a, yeah. There he is. French is a tough name because it sounds like French paper, paper made from France, which is not it at all. So we did the French as American as it gets. French is our name, not our nationality. Rebuilding America's economy one sheet at a time. Anyway. Jerry really hates it when we use his face and his likeness in promotions like this. And we do it all the time, like this next series. This is the happy, good luck, inflatable Jerry French. I'm still amazed that he let us do this. I was at Niles, Michigan at the mill when the sample prototype came back in. It was the very first one. And Jerry pulls it out of the envelope. It's like, what the hell is this? He sees his face munched flat like on the right and said, the hell is this, a monkey of some kind? No, Jerry, it's you. It's like, I didn't know it was going to look like this. I thought it'd be a picture. So he starts blowing it up, and he's blowing and blowing, and he doesn't realize until it's all blown up that the nozzle is located in the crotch. So he yelled, damn it, this can't happen. Tell the manufacturer they blew it. We got to change this now. So I called the manufacturer and said, they got to move the nozzle. This won't fly. And anyway, so when all 20,000 were finally delivered, they pulled them out and Jerry blew it up again, and they moved the nozzle to the ass instead. Jerry's reply was, you flaky bastards, you did it to me again. That's his pet name for us. Anyway. Yeah, I can't get that memory out of my head of Jerry blowing himself up. It's like a photograph stuck there forever. Horrifying. This is the plastic toy Jerry with the French name embedded into his hair. So we made Jerry into the living, breathing trademark character for French, because other mills don't really have family behind them, and there's no people. And you can call the mill and talk to Jerry himself and order your paper through him, which I think is really, really cool. And we did this because most designers like to buy paper from a small family-owned company rather than a huge conglomerate. Which reminds me of an old adage I once heard. I'm not saying it's true, but interesting. This is the double-jointed paper Jerry. So French is the only client I've ever had who, when we present an idea, they'll say, well, I don't like it. I don't think it's funny. I don't understand it, but go ahead and do it. And then he always follows up, because you're the audience, not me, you flaky bastards. Which, of course, means designers, I guess. Our Big Eye Keen and 80s Duran Duran Jerry. These are the French urinal deodorizer cakes, probably one of our most effective logo applications ever. And this was for the How Design Conference a few years back. And after the first opening session, 3,000 designers streamed out and went to the bathroom at the Hilton Hotel. And in the men's bathroom, there was probably like 30 urinals lined up on this granite wall with about 50 people in line waiting to use them. So Jerry steps up and starts relieving himself. He looks down and sees something on the urinal cake. It's his logo. So through the yellow copy stains, it reads, "You're in business," with French paper around it. This is the only time I've really seen Jerry get mad in my entire life. I guess we should have told him first. So he looked down the line and saw 30 other people peeing on his logo too, and he finished up and then stormed out and hunted me down, and he said, "Damn it, Anderson, you did it again." And I said, "Sorry, we probably should have told you. Didn't mean to piss you off. But you should have seen our number 2 idea, which was much, much worse." Well. So we stick Jerry's portrait on the back of every swatch book, kind of like a personal guarantee. And after working with Jerry for the past 30 years, I realized that nobody knows more about paper than he does. And even though our design has helped build a brand for French and has really helped them grow their company and their business, I don't fool myself. I never think I know more about paper than Jerry does. And what's really kept them in business when all the other mills have shut down has not really been our design work. As much of it's been sheer force of will. Jerry French works 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and half a day on Sunday. And he's done that for 40 years. And that's really why these guys keep doing it. Yeah, not only do we design French's promotions, we're also customers. We're part of their core audience of designers, which makes focus groups really easy because it's just us. We can also come up with new products without having a bunch of testing. And this is good for speed to market. Yes, that's really a Boston Terrier, disguised as a French Bulldog. So in addition to Jerry, we also created this Mr. French mascot for more consumer-based products. And actually, a Boston Terrier is the only true American breed of dog. So anyway, another plug for the Boston above the Frenchie. This is the French fold-up box that turns into Cubist Mr. French, complete with die-cut poop accessory. What client would let you do things like that? This is so because these conferences, especially the big ones like HOW and Adobe Max, kind of become like Shriner conventions for designers. We thought French needed a fez. This is our friend Alan Peters showing off the Mr. French fez. And of course, Mr. French trying out the French paper Kanye shades. This is a new piece just off press before I got on the plane. Eric Johnson, the new French crafted in America paper beard. We love how everything is, nothing's made or manufactured in this country anymore. Everything is crafted or handcrafted. So we rip on that by changing it to K in craft paper and go on that route. So this promotion also includes kind of a call to action request to post selfies and create a gallery of bearded designer portraits. This is what it looks like when it comes flat. It's got 2 French logos for the eyes. It's really like a brochure, and the tongue is die cut out of the back, shoves through the hole that it's the mouth in the front, and makes the whole thing self-locking. So it's really screwed up. I love the fact that the big paper conglomerates would never allow anything this messed up, this amazingly stupid to ever be done. So that's French's deal. This is French's website. They were the first mill to ever sell paper online, starting in 1998, the same year Google launched. They could have been 2 years earlier than Google, but we had trouble convincing Jerry that this was the way to go. In fact, Jerry kept telling us, he still says this every once in a while. This is the French Total Package promotion. Probably one of the most detailed projects we've ever designed for French, and one of the newest. It's a folder that holds 8 of these inserts, all in different colors of French and foil stamped. So the inserts can be punched out and assembled into a series of small boxes. Each box is designed as its own individually separate brand. And they kind of suggest luxury packaging applications like cosmetics, perfume, jewelry, and gifts, things like that. And when placed together, they spell out the word French. So that's just a close-up of the foil. Okay, another company we really love is Custom Ink. They're America's leading custom print-on-demand apparel company. And they were established in the year 2000, and they were one of the very first companies to ever enable people to design their own t-shirts in real time online. This is what their website and logo originally looked like. And you gotta love when you find a client like this with a website that's this bad. So the after looks so much better. But, so yes, the logo was really bad and generic. The overall look was flat. Product photos were lifeless. I mean, just kind of amazing. What was more amazing is that they took all this bad brand base and they built a $40 million business with two goals: customer service, which was unparalleled, and analytics. So I was amazed. I thought that was impossible to take something like this and actually make it succeed. So I've learned a lot in this process. So we designed Custom Ink's logo by transforming their internal sports team mascot called Inky the Octopus into a friendly symbol. And again, I like the idea that the logo came from within the company. We didn't just make something up. This was actually kind of in progress and being used. So when I first met Custom Ink CEO Mark Katz, it's one of those rare people that I liked instantly. And he's that strange combination of genius and very analytical, but has appreciation for art, and is also one of the kindest and most humble people I've ever met, which you hardly ever find those two things together. But so we started talking about the identity and about kind of what it was, tried to get the three words out of him, the essence of his company, how he wanted it perceived, what it was all about. And he told me the whole story about how he was a Harvard physics major. He got recruited by Wall Street to be an analyst. He didn't like Wall Street or the people or what he was doing there and craved to make something, so he joined his computer engineering buddy and they started the site to actually make things for people, which I thought was really great. And the three words he came up with for the identity were warm chocolate chip cookies, which so wise and so insightful. Every time we go through this exercise with companies, it's more like quality, synergy, value, stuff that doesn't mean anything, that can't translate visually, things that everybody else says, but he had something really specific. So I asked him what he meant, and he said, when you use the Custom Ink site, he wants it to feel like warm chocolate chip cookies. He wants it to be warm, he wants it to be embracing, he wants it to be sweet, he wants it to be a great memory, he wants it to be an incredible experience. And I thought that was pretty great. So we started working with circular logos and circular designs and kind of sneaking up on it and tried a lot of different things that reflected that. And then found out about Inky the Octopus and started moving that way. And I was talking to Mark the whole time, and he's like, not that, that's a terrible cartoon we're using in-house. But I said, but if we make it graphic enough and simple enough, plus a big part of their audience is K through 12, so it's kids. So it had to be happy and it had to be friendly and yet approachable, timeless, black and white, all the Peter Seitz things. So anyway, when we presented it, I was fortunate enough to have gone to dinner with Mark beforehand, and I saw how he ordered food. That was very insightful. I recommend going to dinner if you can with your clients before you design for them. He was incredibly particular and asked a ton of questions. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy to sell a logo. So the way we did this is we came up with the 5 finals, pretty much knowing this was the one. And I called Mark the day before we presented and told him all about it and described it in such a way. He was so detailed, he said, wait a minute, I got a piece of paper here. Let me draw it. So I explained it to him so well over the phone, they actually had it drawn. And then we went to present it the next day. And we got to it, and I was bouncing around in my usual manner. And Mark jumped in and actually helped finish the presentation much better than I ever could have. Afterwards, he showed me the drawing, and it looked almost exactly like the Mark. So I guess he felt invested in it. He had drawn it almost like it came from him, and he understood it. And it wasn't just that ta-da moment that everybody, it's like showing somebody their baby. When you have the baby and the birth and the horrible pain and the blood and the whole deal, that's your baby, there's no choice. But when you show somebody a logo and say, this is your baby, they're like, that's not my baby. My baby's not supposed to look like that. So you got to somehow, in design terms, replicate the pain and the blood and all that stuff. So they get to the point where the baby is theirs. Anyway. This shows just a small selection out of the hundreds of explorations we did for the final Custom Ink logo. Getting there. There it is. So I think this comment from a 10-year-old girl sums it up. I'd like to have her on our team, actually. The sunshine and rainbows version of the Hydra logo. Like if Hydra was all for world peace and cuddling puppies. Couldn't get a better endorsement. Custom Ink shipping box as part of the identity. And the unusual part of this project was that the identity design actually followed the licensing of our entire image collection. That was the first thing we did with Custom Ink before the ID. So they bring good design to the masses by allowing average people to create professional-looking t-shirts using our images and House Industries fonts. This is the truck delivering tasteful shirts instead of food. Done a lot of mascots for these guys. These aren't like the over-trademarked, overused college mascots, more like the cheesy high school variety that everybody can use for intramural teams and other crazy things, including really weird ones like Team Devil Baby or Woodman. Kind of like designer mascots, you know? People that aren't really that into sports. So our images are part of the Custom Ink brand experience. They're part of the products, and they're part of the kind of the integrated in the entire site, which is deeper than just a logo. This is a customer designed this with 20 of our owls, which would be impossible to design on any other site. We also designed this life-size Inky mascot suit for live events. Kind of inspired by 60s Japanese horror films, you know, where the monsters dressed up in rubber suits crushing Tokyo. So that was the idea. We wanted that perfect balance between creepy yet terrifying and cute, fun, you know, for the kids. So Custom Ink thought it was great that we put a t-shirt on it because it was appropriate, but then they were shocked to find out that it was actually forgot the pants. Another great idea we did was for Turner Classic Movies, and started with this logo for Paramount Pictures, is where the journey began. This is pre-digital, hand-drawn with black and white ink. Paramount was always a painting until we did this graphic version of it for this line of Hollywood Paramount products we did years ago. So Turner saw this and invited us to design the logo for Turner Classic Movies, a new network they were launching. And we were thrilled until we heard there was 3 design firms, us and one from the East Coast, one from the West Coast. So it was going to be a contest, a beauty pageant. Then we weren't so thrilled. And usually we'll just present 3 to 5 great marks. This time we thought, okay, since it's a logo lottery, we'll enter all 100 marks. We'll do everything we do, we'll send in, which we did. And we won, it worked. But they picked the worst one. They picked this one, which represented movies from the 1930s, but their collection is much bigger and broader than that, so it didn't even work. So then we had to panic and figure out how to make this thing go. So we came up with all these different character icons that would represent each type of film and each type of audience watching the films. And the TCM is really the logo. Then we came up with different type formats, like this one, and even did cards that were like movie tickets, posters. I remember Ted Turner complaining a lot about the cost of this. I wonder if he'd still think that 30 years later, still in use. Kind of spreads out over time.
Come on, boys, let's have your jive on the mellow side. Jim jam jump is a solid jive. Makes you hear the cats will have you. So reap this righteous riff. Mop, mop. The jam jam is a jam jive. Makes you dig your jive on the mellow side. I know you dug this mellow jive.
So, Target, another one. Amazing design company, led by design, just blocks down the street from our studio. Halloween icons, we did the Halloween branded identity for Target one year. And everything in store pretty much. Giant signs, packaging, product for sale, kind of the whole thing. Including our little squirt costume, which is the best-selling costume in Target that year. No relation to Inky. Also did this Target Spark identity for their Innovation Speaker Series that they asked me to present at, so we did this series of posters too. And they did a search on CSA Images and found that the 2 keywords they liked best were spark and idea, and they came up with all these. So then they asked us to do 10 posters instead. Halifax Health, giant hospital in Florida. This got killed a bad, bad death. And not for reasons of the mark at all. It was accepted and the board of doctors killed it, which means that 3 worst categories of clients, doctors, lawyers, and yeah, all that. For Nike, Logos for the opening of the Nike store. 2 logos embedded in each one. Betty Crocker. Story for the New York Times about how old she was, but how great she looked. Skull and Crossbones, her true age. Krasvika, a local party we have in Minneapolis every year. It's a crayfish eating party. It's Swedish. These are the tickets. You tear them in half, just like you do the crayfish, and you suck the guts out of it, and that's how you eat them. Of course, more people had drank beer than they did eat the crayfish, so we did these mugs. This is all about the CSA brand. How to remove the most difficult aspect of the design process. Took us years to figure this out. And by becoming our own brand, having our own products, and unfortunately, we turned out to be even worse than our most difficult clients. Also, our worst enemy, all these logos we designed over the years, can never get finished, can never get it right. Continual progress since 1989. This is the one we're using right now for an apparel line with our own brand. Talking to Amazon about this, they're launching a giant platform for print on demand next year for T-shirts and apparel. This is the CSA Images collection. Started in 1974. Designer passed out working on the stuff by hand. Black and white images, pre-computer. Now it's 100,000 images in the collection. And lots of logos and icons. We use these for visual brainstorming for our approach. And we also Xeroxed the entire US trademark library from 1870 to 1989, and then spent 5 years going through them, picking the good ones, handing them off to a law firm who spent another year to find out which ones had expired and were no longer in use. That's kind of how crazy we are. Then we took them all and finalized and redrew them all and made them bold and vector and simpler in color. Different archive logos we've used over the years. Also have illustrations. Some of these were used by Juicy Couture. Buttons showing simple icons. And dingbats, abstract shapes. Hand lettering collection, we have 10,000 of these, searchable by keyword. We're also working to finalize this, 2,000 individual letters from hot metal and film from the history of type. This is what they look like finished. And back to the end here, I just want to say that in closing, I feel really blessed to have spent most of my life on this incredible design adventure, traveling the world and digging through obscure junk shops, antique flea markets, and private libraries to purchase all these actual artifacts that make up the collection, which has allowed us to build on the shoulders of giants who have gone before. In closing, I'd like to say that I believe my unlikely journey from a remote, small farm town in Iowa to being here today was only made possible by God, the grace of God, and the creator of all and the source of all creativity. Thanks so much. And thanks for not cutting me off.
What? Oh, you did great on time. You took from the time that we took away, so that's perfectly fine.
What's that?
Oh, it's impossible to hear what I say to you. You hear perfectly fine, but up here it's weird. No, I just want to, the only thing I'll say is that I need to add a confidentiality clause to my emails so that speakers don't say all the secrets that goes on behind the scenes. Oh. Yeah, that's right.
It's not like you're filming it or selling it or anything, right?
No, not like that. No, nothing like that. Chuck, thank you so much. That was a wonderful way to start the day.